All right, guys, welcome back. On the block, Igor Henriquez, Joe Ferrari. As you can tell, we moved things outside, socially distancing. It's also a beautiful day, beautiful sun. We want to take advantage of it. All right, Igor. So Raptors started off yesterday, their first scrimmage, played Rockets and James Harden. Everybody was playing, so it's not like it was, obviously the stakes weren't too high, but still, team looked good.
Yeah.
You saw some of the highlights. I watched most of the game. Your thoughts?
I mean, I know Terrence Davis had a really good game. He's keeping up what he was doing, and I mean, like I said, I'm taking a lot of what happened with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's a glorified scrimmage. Let's be honest, but I mean, it's always good to get wins, and the Rockets are a team that in the West is going to be considered one of the favorites. I wouldn't say a top tier favorite, but it's a good team, and it's going to be one of those interesting situations where you look at the Raptors have been fighting hard to stay in that second seed in the East, and there's not going to be any home court advantage, which
is even for everybody.
Even for everybody, I guess.
The real best team.
I guess Orlando's got home court technically, but
they're still living in the bubble.
They're still living in the bubble, but I guess that's one thing that really is going to be an issue there, because again, I think that the home court definitely plays a factor when you're coming into the playoffs and so forth, but. I mean, like I said, we talked off camera. I think it's going to be a crapshoot of who ends up doing what, and whoever gets hot at particular points. Yeah, like certain teams have the capabilities, but injuries. We saw what happened to Sabonis recently.
Yeah, he's done. It looks like he's
pretty
done.
much done. So that pretty much, I think that, and I don't know if Oladipo is going to play or not, but I think the Pacers are pretty much out of the conversation wholeheartedly.
If they ever were. Yeah.
I mean, they weren't again a contending team, but they were someone that might have given somebody some problems. But without Sabonis there, I just can't see it, especially if Oladipo doesn't play. So, I mean, that would be great for the Raptors in that situation. I mean, you do want to avoid. I think you want to avoid the Bucks until the Eastern Conference Finals if you can. And you might end up getting Boston in the second round or so forth, but you're going to have to beat good teams to get there anyways. But I mean, I like the Raptors' chances, and in a situation where they play solid defense, if they get guys like Siakam and guys like Lowry, and then all Van Vliet, the Soul's back in amazing shape. So it really does depend on who gets hot and who can develop the best chemistry early. And yeah, you have those I think 8 games that they have before the playoffs start.
I think it's 9, 8 or 9.
They play pretty much all playoff contending teams, obviously.
Teams, yeah.
I mean, besides, I think maybe they got Orlando, and I think they might have one team that's really on the bubble of making the playoffs. But I mean, that'll get them ready. And again, matchups is going to be a big thing. If they play Philly, and I know Philly wants to put Ben Simmons at power forward now, and have Shake Milton end up being the point guard. So we'll see how everyone's experimenting. I mean, you just don't know what the heck's going to happen. But it's nice to have basketball back, and I'm hoping, knock on wood, that they can finish it if the guys can,
stay healthy.
Stay healthy, and make sure they don't, break social distancing protocols by not, inviting certain people into the bubble and all that.
Well, I think that they're pretty strict with that.
Well, the whole snitch line. We'll get into all of that.
We'll get into a bit of the gossip.
A bit of the gossip with the snitch lines, but I mean, I'm hoping they can play it off. I still think it's going to be a situation where it might be tough. I mean, if there's an outbreak, it's over, right? So I know, knock on wood, I'm hoping everything goes well. And the Raptors have as good a shot as anybody right now. And in terms of personnel of how they were playing, it really just depends on the chemistry.
In terms of teams that might not have high title odds, but maybe a dark horse team that you can think of, is there anybody that if you had to make a bet and wanted to make a little bit of money, a team on the outside, maybe looking at maybe a team seeded 5 through 8 in either conference that you think might have a legit shot to win it all?
I mean, we just talked about the Rockets. I think in the West, if I was gonna think, if James Harden gets hot, if Westbrook, and now that he's recovered from COVID, I mean, you would think that they may have a shot out west of the teams that I wouldn't consider them to be. I would consider them to maybe be 5th, 4th best team in the West per se.
Well, in the West, I guess it's Clippers, Lakers, Denver, right?
Yeah, and then after that, so I mean, if Harden gets hot, if he's really shooting the lights out, they're a team that could be definitely dangerous to maybe make some noise. In the East, I don't really see, besides between the Bucks, the Raptors, the Sixers, the Heat, and the Celtics, I don't really see anyone that's going to surprise them. I mean, Miami might be a bit of a dark horse because I don't think a lot of people had massive expectations coming into the season. So they might play a key role, but besides that, I don't really see. I mean, I like the Mavericks a little bit in the West.
That's what I was gonna say,
because they got a few players that can definitely take over games, and if everybody's healthy. But I also think they'll end up in a seventh seed type of thing, and I don't see them beating the Clippers at this point, which will likely be the matchup. So, there's some teams that can definitely make some noise. But again, like I said, it's a crapshoot at this point, really.
Especially with the guys getting hurt. And I was going to say, so Zion just came back. I saw, and they're saying that he's been tested and he's been negative the whole time. You think that he was obviously on the tear before everything got shut down? The 15 or whatever games he ended up playing, and like every other team, like the Raptors, everybody's gotten the guys that were not healthy back. Gasol, Ibaka. OG was hurt for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, OG was the only guy that wasn't hurt.
Wasn't hurt for a while.
Kyle missed time. Fred missed time.
Norm,
So
yeah.
you think that every team, for the most part, unless you just suffered injury like the Indiana guys, you're getting back with full strength. It's pretty much like a new season. So do you think maybe even Portland, who got back Nurkic?
Yeah. Well, Nurkic has again minutes restrictions. We'll see how he comes back.
They said none. They said no minute restrictions.
Well, I mean, again, he hasn't really been playing games, so I don't know how that'll pan out. But I mean, they could be a team that can cause some waves. But like I said, it'll really depend on matchups. I mean, would that be again? What were they in seventh or eighth?
No, I don't think they were. I think they might have been in ninth.
On ninth.
Eighth
So
or
if they
ninth.
make the playoffs, that'll make some noise. And again, I'm sure the NBA wants to see Zion play as many games as possible. So it's going to be an interesting ride with that. And yeah, will a Portland series against the Lakers probably be entertaining? Yeah. Do I give Portland a huge shot? No. But again, Damien goes off. Damien goes off. You just never know. And like I said, it's one of those things where I think this is between all the sports. I think it's one of those seasons where you just don't. It's going to be one of those. You just don't know what the heck's going to happen. And if things come out of the blue, shocking wise, it won't surprise anybody because of the layoffs, because of just how the year's been going in general. But yeah, it's just gonna be nice to see some basketball in August. I'm sure a lot of people want to be outside and stuff, so that's gonna be trouble. Hockey, the same thing. Yeah. Like 3 games a day. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to do some sacrifices in the summer for a little bit if you want to watch these games. But yeah, the patios. And, I'm just happy to have things back, and hopefully they last.
That's the thing. Hopefully there's no second. Well,
I'm concerned about that definitely, because if there's an outbreak between a couple guys on the team, and it starts spreading, they're going to start shutting everything down. So, they're taking risks and they're doing what they can. I think the Orlando bubble was probably, considering how Florida's doing in terms of the virus, probably wasn't the best of ideas, the best places at least. But I mean, I guess they needed a big place.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They needed the facility, and then also the whole theory of the bubble is once you're inside, you can't contract. You come in and you have a negative test,
which takes discipline for sure, right?
But if you're inside in a quarantined area, you can't really get the virus in, right?
You would think, right? But like
especially
I said,
with the types of precautions.
You're on Twitter, so you've already seen that. How many people are getting invites into the bubble? I'm sure they'll be able to sneak people in. Like, it's going to be a little bit of a, because again, those guys aren't used to that, and they know, like, I can't, I haven't lived the life of an NBA player. Of, you're used to a certain type of situations. You're used to certain types of company. Like, it's something that you got to be real disciplined, right? And that's the thing. Some people don't have that discipline. I mean, we see how many NBA
some suspensions, maybe. Then.
Oh, I 100% see people are going to break quarantine. 100%. Like, some guys are just going to go stir crazy. They're going to risk it all to try to get out, and then they're probably going to get snitched on, and then they're going to especially the guys that, like, some of those guys, those teams that are in ninth place, don't really have, like, realistic opportunities. Like the Wizards, I think they have no chance.
That's what I wanted to say. So the NBA brought back 22 teams.
And
we've seen Brooklyn. We've talked about Brooklyn in the group chat. I don't know how many NBA bodies they have on that roster. They started off with 12, right? Or whatever it would be. And
they've lost half the roster.
Guy after guy. DeAndre, Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah.
There was also
they signed Beasley, and then he couldn't play.
Jamal Crawford got signed, which I was kind of happy to see. He's 40. But you know what? It's good to see him in some games. Teams like that, and also Washington, like you said, Beal sitting out. I don't know what Beal's motivation to not play. Like, I understand they're not playing for anything, but still, like, he had such a great season. Don't you want to kind of finish that and still play?
I think he sees that it's a very unrealistic opportunity that they'd make the playoffs, and he'd be wasting his time, which is. I think when they were talking about maybe bringing John Wall back, because John Wall's ready, but like I said, mathematically, it would take a near, like their chance of making the playoffs probably under 5%, unless the 8th place team really takes a nosedive. And you know what, like The Nets are one of those guys, one of those situations. But then again, you're also playing. Washington would have to go on a tear against really great playoff teams too. So the odds of them being able to do it are probably slim. So I guess Beal just decided, you know what, I don't. Maybe it's a health thing. He doesn't want to risk his health. Who the heck knows? But
okay, so I want to say outside of the top, let's stick with the East and just the top team, Milwaukee. First of all, do you think Milwaukee gets to the finals?
Well, I mean, I've been a guy that, you know, I've pushed against, you know, some of Nick Nurse's decisions over the last few years. I mean, I wasn't thrilled with how he handled Game 5 of the Warriors series and then that timeout. But I mean, I think that people are starting to figure out how to defend him a little bit. And if you have the personnel, you can do it. I'm talking about obviously by Giannis. Are the Bucks the favorites to come out of the East? I would assume so, based off of what they've been doing. But I mean, you have to obviously devise strategies to stop Giannis, and the Raptors have the personnel to do it. I think that the Sixers are just all sorts of problematic in terms of how they handle specific rotations. But there's teams that can definitely challenge the Bucks. Would I put my money on the Bucks likely making the finals? Probably, but I wouldn't put the house on it. I'll tell you that much, because again, you just don't know. I saw Giannis' performance during the scrimmage. Amazing stats for, I think, barely 20 minutes. But again, they're gonna send guys to Giannis and other guys like Middleton and other guys like the Lopez brothers. They're gonna have to come to play. So,
but they have been for a few seasons now, right?
Like I said, I mean, Nurse was able. Again, there's no Kawhi. But Nurse was able to devise strategies on how to defend Giannis up the court. Giannis has become a better player. I think a little bit better of a shooter this year. But I mean, they're definitely the favorites. But I wouldn't put like a huge stamp on it. And in the West either. I think I was very Clippers early on. I'm really, again, the Lakers have been.
What changed?
Well, in terms of the Clippers,
yeah.
I think the Lakers have been a lot better than more people thought.
Better than you thought as well.
And it's one of those situations better than I thought. I thought the Lakers wouldn't really take the regular season that seriously. They would rest and so forth. I think LeBron has a lot to prove. Again, he's now coming in rested. Again, the games are going to come fast and furious too. I think staying healthy is going to be the big thing. Which team can stay healthy? They're going to play games fast and furious. They're not going to have huge amounts of time off. Like you see that in we were talking about Serie A and soccer. Like a couple days in between games at most. Like if
you don't have depth, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, you don't have depth, and that's why the Raptors have a lot of depth where they can throw guys. You have a guy like Davis. You have a guy like Norm Powell that can be a heck of a point getter off the bench.
Fred, Rondo. There's so many guys.
There's a lot of guys they can throw, and the Raptors are probably one of the deepest teams. So I still would give the Raptors an opportunity to make the finals this year, because again, until the thing with the Raptors is, how are they going to go do in the playoffs? Because that was always. I mean, I have a lot of friends that give me, slack about not enjoying Kyle Lowry and should give Kyle more credit. I mean, the proof is in the pudding that they barely is over 500 in the playoffs. So how are they going to do it without Kawhi? Is Pascal going to step up? Is Kyle going to revert to ghosts of playoffs past? There's a lot of question marks, right? So that with the Raptors, I have to basically see how they perform in the playoffs, because last year, I mean, let's be honest here, that Philly series without Kawhi Leonard, they're done. They're done because the whole rest of the team didn't do much up until about Game 4, Game 5.
Yep.
They're done. So if they do that again this year, they don't have Kawhi to save them. Sure, Pascal's better than what he was. Sure, Fred's been doing better. But how are they going to perform in the playoffs when the matchups get tougher and the defense gets tougher? So that'll all depend. Because until that happens, I can't say this team is going to be the be all and end all, because they got to prove it without having, I would say, a top 2, top 3 player in the league. That's just the way it is.
So obviously you're concerned about Kyle. What other guys?
I've always been concerned about Kyle.
But what other guys do you think might not respond? Which guys are you worried about in the playoffs?
Well, here's the thing. Well, like Pascal is not going to get number 1 matchups in the playoffs. He wasn't getting that last year. How's he going to handle them? How's he going to handle being matched up?
We saw him struggle against the Warriors, being like the top guy, right? Like he wasn't terrible.
They weren't great against teams over 500 this year. The record states that they were not great against teams that were upper echelon teams. And sure, you're not going to have great records against them, but they were bad. I would say that they were under 500 against those teams. Yeah.
This season?
You look it up. They really
they beat the Lakers. They only played them once.
Yeah. So they have about a good 4 or 5 wins against solid teams. But against teams that were over 500, their record was below 500. It's documented, where they really went hard on teams they should have beat, which again they should get the W's. but against teams that were above 500, they had problems.
The only thing I was going to say is like it's kind of tough because we missed a good month and a half of the season, and I know that the Lakers were coming back here. There's a few teams, especially in the West, that they would have had to play in Toronto because the Raptors went on a West Coast trip early and they did really well. Remember we were talking about with Lamar,
Utah,
where he was a believer after they beat the Lakers and they almost beat the Clippers, and that was a hell of an effort on a back-to-back. That was a hell of a game,
sure,
right?
Yeah, and again they have the capabilities. It's just I think a lot of the teams that they had struggled with was more in the East where they had the Sixers that they did reasonably well against,
and they were decimated with injuries too.
Yeah,
remember that Portland game?
Another thing. Yeah,
like I was going to say, like I saw that Carmelo Anthony highlight. I was at that game, one of the few ones I went to this year, and he hit that jump from like 15 feet, and I was like, you got to be kidding. They were up going into the fourth big. And then it just got to the point, I remember there was a few games in that stretch, there was a home stretch. They had so many injuries, guys were gassed, like we were talking about in soccer. They were playing minutes they're not used to, and they just coughed it up in the fourth quarter. And I attribute that to injuries more than like talent or anything like that.
And that's a fair assessment too. I mean, their record, again, they haven't really been massively healthy this year. I mean, they absolutely destroyed Utah at home. I think they
were up 50, I think, at half. I was there.
It was insane, yeah. So, I mean, I guess you can also attribute some of those losses to health-wise. But like I said, I mean, what's going to happen come the playoffs is going to be one of those situations as well. But like I said, I really have to see what this team without Kawhi Leonard does in the playoffs. Obviously, they're always slow starters. I mean, they lost to Orlando game 1 last year. They always start slow. And again, in this situation, I don't know. It's good that they get these games in before the playoffs and warm up. I'm looking to see if Gasol has a bigger impact now that he's in better shape. His defensive stats were great. Offensively, wasn't doing much. He had games where he wasn't getting 5 points, and from a guy that was a multiple-time All-Star for the majority of his career, you need more from him. So there's that situation. But like I said, I've been using the same word, crapshoot. It's going to be one of those things. Which team gets hot? Who stays healthy? And you're good to go, because I think more so than ever, it's going to be less circumstances. You got guys getting signed like J.R. Smith, all over by the Lakers, random stuff happening.
Because Rondo went down, right?
Yeah, Chalmers might get signed. I hear it's all over.
It's turning into a rec league almost with some of these guys coming back.
Well, I mean, the Nets. Well, I mean, we joke around that one of our buddies could sign a 10-day and play for the Nets.
Shout out to Zane Shaw because you might be getting that call. Okay, so I was going to say, we talked about the East. You said that Milwaukee would be your bet. If there's anybody that you think would make it to the finals over Milwaukee, beat them in the East final, and maybe Milwaukee gets upset, who do you think that team to go to the finals and possibly win it would be?
I mean, again, based off of what we saw last year, I would assume that it would be the Raptors, because one, the Raptors might have a mental edge on them because they swept them in 4 straight last year.
Without Kawhi.
But like I said, it really just depends. Like, yes, you don't have Kawhi, which is huge, because I think, on the defensive and offensive end, he was the catalyst. But you also have, I think OG's developed a much better game this year. Norm's taken a step forward.
Norm looked good yesterday.
Fred's taken a step forward. Terrence Davis is taking a step forward. The Raptors can throw a lot of guys at you. I do like the defense that Rondae plays. So I think the Raptors this year are a better quote unquote team than the one that they had last year. Without Kawhi. Obviously, if you had Kawhi here, I would say without a shadow of a doubt, if the other guys were doing what they were doing, they're making the finals again. Heck, we might even be celebrating again down on the street, because if you look at all those upgrades that they've gotten on specific guys, and you add in Kawhi on that, they're a heck of a powerhouse team. I think we might be going back.
Do you think if Kawhi was still here, do you think the Raptors are favored to win it all?
100%.
Over the Lakers? Over the Lakers?
If you have the jump that Pascal's having, the jump that Fred's having, if everyone does, and maybe that they don't have that with Kawhi taking some of the ball and some of the possessions, but, I mean, 100%, because who would have better depth than the Raptors if you had Kawhi here and all those guys were doing what they're doing? Absolutely.
And you take them over the Lakers if that were the case.
100%, because like I said, I'm a LeBron guy.
That's why this is tough to believe.
We all know this, but if you look at it, the Lakers would have, yes, Anthony Davis would definitely give the Raptors problems. And again, Gasol in his shape now might help that, but you look at Kawhi would take on LeBron. He usually does a pretty good job against LeBron most of the time. And then you look at the extended depth, like if you go man for man, you're definitely Danny Green over Pascal, or again the overall head to head would be definitely favoring the Raptors in terms of overall depth, because again the Lakers, they're relying on guys like J.R. Smith that haven't been in a while, and even them they should be concerned about what's going on, because like I said, their depth isn't the greatest. They're going to rely a lot on LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and if Davis doesn't have the best history, I would definitely take him man for man the way that the Raptors have been playing 100%. I mean, if you look at it, the Raptors beat them in LA, right?
LA, earlier
and
in
that
the
was
season.
and that was without Kawhi.
Yep.
Which
And
again,
a healthy Lakers squad.
which again, I mean, we go into the Golden State thing. They beat Golden State, a fully healthy Golden State
In the
last
season.
year in Golden State without Kawhi. So I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, the Raptors did this, the Raptors did that." The Raptors faced a fully healthy Golden State team without Kawhi and still beat them in Golden State. So the Raptors took, what was it, 4 games from them in Golden State? Yeah, they won. They swept them in games 3 and 4.
I know that
plus
we
6.
lost game 2.
4-0 in Golden State last
4-0.
year. 4-0. And again, they had Durant. There was no excuses there. They had Curry, they had Clay, they had all of them.
I think actually when we went to Golden State in the regular season, I think that there was one guy. I want to say that it was Curry that might have been out in that game. That we
Oh,
went
they all
there.
played.
Everybody played?
Everybody played. Everybody
Was
played.
that when
Kawhi wasn't playing,
was
which
la-
means they should have really ruined
Was that
us.
when Durant? Because I know he's been there. It was there for a few years. When Durant had that quote saying, "These guys are a real title contender." Remember that?
I think it was
That
because,
the
like I
game
said,
in, like, November?
they beat them steadily. Because again, I watched the game. The Warriors couldn't hit the back of a barn that game. Fair enough, they definitely had an off
I
game.
want to say they won by like 10 points or something.
Well, the
didn't they?
Raptors were up by I think Serge went off that game. I think he had
Serge
like 20
looks great,
plus.
by the way. Like I watched the game yesterday. Serge looks great. Like it was so.
Mafuzi
You
Chef.
can talk about Mafuzi Chef. Shout out to my
Chef.
guy, but shout out to the Congo in there. It's my man Don Kingo as well. But I was so pleasantly surprised to see all these guys. Like I said, like they all looked good. And I know whatever they're professional athletes. There was a lot of worry about guys whether they're going to stay in shape during this time. And you know, Houston's a team that's long, athletic, and like not big. So it's not like you're going against leoparding guys where it's like, okay, like maybe we have time to get our guys in shape. Like Houston's gonna run it on you, and they did the whole game. All their guys were healthy, and like the Raptors, I watched and I was like, at the beginning they were down, and I know the game means nothing, it's a scrimmage, but it's still some kind of meter to kind of gauge where they are because you're going against a real threat
You
too.
have to also look at it that one, I think the championship DNA, what they went through last year and winning it, has definitely motivated guys that were there, and I think a lot of them want to prove that it wasn't just the Kawhi show. So I think they're definitely motivated. And again, the majority of the core of the team is back. I mean, you lost Danny, you lost Kawhi, but you also have guys like, again, I think OG is gonna settle in. I think OG is gonna be great defensively. I think he's gonna turn into if he hasn't already, a pretty decent draft pick in general. So the Raptors are gonna be a tough defensive team, and I'm not worried more about their defense. I'm worried about who's gonna be the catalyst on offense if Pascal ends up getting those tough matchups. Is Kyle gonna step up? Is it gonna be Fred? But then again, you just never know with them because Norm can drop 30.
Yeah.
Like it's a team that's going to be tough to defend
Feed the
because
hot hand.
you can feed the hot hand. And these guys are taking steps. So again, I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, I think that they have a genuine opportunity. I think the Sixers, mixing stuff up with Simmons at power forward, if that ends up working, they might be a problem. But I don't know how much Shake Middleton's going to have. If he has the 30 plus minutes in him, if he's going to be able to do that. And I still think that it doesn't spread. So if you have Simmons at power forward and Embiid at center, I still think they get in each other's way. But
And then Horford's coming off the bench
which
now.
is a crazy thing because how much money they gave him. But that cuts into his minutes, so he's not going to be out there as much. So I think the Celtics, if Kemba's has some concerns about his health. They obviously have a good.
They
enough
didn't
team.
look good either. I know they played OKC and I don't know, like the Celtics. I always think that they're like a legitimate shot that a dark horse to go to the finals, even though they're a third or fourth team because they have the defense, they have the young guys, they have the scoring, they have a guy that could be a superstar. But it's just I don't know if they're there yet. Especially Kemba hasn't looked great since he's been there. He had some flashes. Now I know he's not the most efficient scorer, and they don't really need his scoring because they have guys that can put the ball in the
Tatum,
basket.
Brown, yeah.
But I don't know. Boston, their defense is great. They don't have a big man, so it's going to be, if they go against a bigger team, they might struggle against a team like Philly. I don't know, but I'm kind of with you. I think that the Raptors probably have the second best chance outside of Milwaukee because Milwaukee is probably the best team in basketball. I think that they've kind of shown that, or at least arguably 1-2 in the league. But in the West, I think to me is where things get a lot more interesting because the Clippers might have more depth than anybody. The Raptors, especially in the West, right? Like who has more depth than they do? And who do you think makes it out of the West?
I mean, I think it'll be the two LA teams will probably be fighting it out in the Western Conference Finals in terms of.
You think there's no upsets leading up to it then?
I mean,
with the 1-2,
like I said, I think that that if that Mavs Clippers matchup happens, I think that's that'll be an interesting situation because again, you have two guys in Porzingis and Doncic that are going to be a problem, and one you just don't know like if Paul George gets injured as he's usually does at some point, like does Kawhi have enough there to take him there? I like Patrick Beverley. I think Patrick Beverley's a great player, especially on defense. I like Montrezl Harrell. I like obviously Lou's a fan.
Reggie Jackson. They picked up. They picked up Morris at the deadline, which they have so many guys. I think that, like you said, the Raptors probably have the most guys that if you put them on any other team could get you 15 to 20 points a game.
Yeah.
Fred's in that conversation. OG can probably get you 15. Norm Windle can get 15. Look at the Clippers. Lou Williams and Harrell right away. Two guys that can get you 20. They've proven that. Maybe 18, whatever it is, right? Morris' brother, when he was in New York, whatever team he's been in, he's always been a great scorer, a great shooter. And then Kawhi and Paul George. Reggie Jackson, who's been an all-star before. I'm far from a Reggie Jackson fan. But if he's your backup point guard, you could do a lot worse.
For sure. And like I said, I think it all depends. Again, that's another thing. They pick up those guys at the deadline. The corona hits. They haven't gelled with some of those. And again, it'll come up to health. I mean, I think the Lakers, depth-wise, I'm a little concerned with that. But like I said, when you have two guys like Davis and LeBron, it's gonna be a tough. I think it's gonna come down to the West. I think everyone wants that to happen. I think most people wanted that to happen, where they want to see the Clippers and then the Lakers go at it. Again, Houston, their lack of a center, when you're playing guys like Davis and you're playing guys like Harrell and stuff like that, I don't know how that's gonna fly. I mean, that they might be like I said, the biggest dark horse situation because they're playing this type of, they got no center. I mean, they're going to be playing a small.
You think they're the biggest dark horse? What
was it? The guy from Minnesota. That's the guy that they're. What's his name? Not Covington.
Robert Covington.
Robert Covington. Yeah. So he's going to be playing.
PJ Tucker's playing center too, right?
Yeah, when you go up against guys like freaking Anthony Davis, I don't know.
Good luck. Yeah.
It's gonna. I mean, Davis is a good. Tucker's a great defender, but the mismatch on size is ridiculous.
Houston spanked the Lakers in that first game. They went small after that trade.
True. So like I said, but is it going to be sustained?
I think the Lakers are the biggest team probably in basketball with the three centers that they have that they play regular minutes with McGee, Davis, and Dwight. Right, those guys all play all game.
Yeah,
there's always a few of them.
And again, rebounding wise, how's that going to work? But I guess if Russ I think Russ is going to be the big thing too there because he usually has some pretty interesting
bad shooting yesterday, very bad shooting.
And he's recovering from COVID. And again, they're going to rely a lot on James Harden. Harden isn't the best playoff performer, so they're a dark horse.
Gordon looks all right. I saw he looked pretty good yesterday. Hopefully he's healthy.
Again, hopefully he's healthy. But I think it's going to come down to the two LA teams. Unless there's some real, I think Denver. I want to see how Jokic is playing point guard.
Yeah, and he's lost a lot of weight.
He lost a lot of weight, so that'll be interesting. But like I said, it's a lot of experimental.
Do you want to talk about Bol right now? How he's looked in that one game?
Well, he already got drug tested, so. But again, how many minutes is that guy going to really play when things are going to go?
He's playing 15, 20 minutes.
Hitting threes, and I liked. I mentioned it too. I think Seth, the hottest guy before the break, and I did have him on the fantasy team, and it just didn't work out. But Seth Curry was just doing crazy numbers for the Mavericks, and he might
came back and he's been on fire.
He might be another guy that'll be a problem too. So. I mean, like I said, I think the Mavericks have a legit chance if they get the right matchups. But again, if they get the Clippers first round, I can't see it. But
what about OKC? I want to talk about them too. You think OKC out of those teams?
I think it's been a nice situation with Chris Paul and it's worked.
It's worked really well.
Shout out to Shea, Canadian boy. But I
don't. Gallinari.
I don't see how they could really Remember, it's in a 7-game series. Well, can they make some noise? I mean, sure, but I don't see them as a legit.
You don't think they could? No, but you don't think they can? Win a first round series?
Depends on the matchup, really. I mean,
other than the two LA teams,
well,
what do they beat anybody? Think they could beat Denver?
I mean, if they face Denver, I couldn't. If they, I don't. Again, the seedings right now, I'm a little bubbled on where they are. I think they're
Houston, OKC, Denver, Dallas, Portland, all those teams. Everybody that's not LA, really.
I mean, if they, I can't. I mean. I could see them giving Denver maybe a series, but I can't see it with the two LA teams.
I don't know what it is. I have a feeling that the Clippers might lay an egg Not
Really?
the first round. Maybe not the first round, but I think they might go out in the second round.
Well, yeah, I've seen Kawhi a lot more frustrated than I ever saw him with the Raptors. So
During, like, before the COVID?
before the COVID
Yeah.
thing. So, and again, like, it's going to be a situation. I think health's going to play a major concern. If it could really, like, if one of the big guys in the West go down for an extended period of time, it could change the whole infrastructure of everything.
Because the thing
But then again, that happens everywhere, I guess, technically. But
with
if Giannis goes down, the Bucks
oh,
are in
yeah,
trouble
of course,
too, right?
yeah.
So,
I think it's a lot less
lose
likely in a
Pascal and the
short period of
Raptors,
time,
and
yeah.
they're in trouble too, right?
The
So.
thing about the Clippers that kind of worries me for them is just you look at a team like the Raptors, and those are probably the two deepest teams in the league. But with the Raptors, I feel like everybody knows the pecking order. They know how many times they're going to get the ball in the game, providing that nobody gets hurt. No one was averaging 20 for a while, but like if
Yeah.
everybody's healthy, which they are, you know how many shots you're going to get. With the Clippers, I feel like everybody on their team, their top, I don't know, 5-6 guys, have at one point in their career and fairly recently averaged 20 points. And I think that it's going to be tough for guys like even Lou. Like Lou comes in, he kind of just takes over the whole 5-man squad. He comes in and him and Harrell run the pick and roll. But like I said, Morris, Paul George, Kawhi, Jermichael Green is not like that. He's more of a glue guy. But I just think they have so many guys that are trying to get theirs. And I just wonder how that's... And that's going back to Kawhi, being frustrated with guys. Whereas with the Raptors, he comes in, he does his thing, past the open
you
guy.
never
They know
saw
what
some of
system.
their reactions. Yeah.
I don't think the Clippers have that
Well,
system.
here's the thing, and as much as everybody in Clipperland was all joyous when they got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, the identity of the team, and we've heard reports about there being internal friction because of how those two guys are getting treated compared to the rest. They went from a team that was a very workman-like team, a team that was led by Lou and Montrezl Harrell, and they basically just changed the identity of now they're not like the underdogs.
They're the pretty boys now.
They did a pretty decent job in the
Last
playoffs
year,
against the
Golden
Warriors.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They beat them twice, I believe. And then when that identity gets changed, where now you have two guys that are going to take the majority of the headlines, and not to mention the majority of the possessions. Yeah, the guys get it. Well, now we're taking a back seat, and how it's going to work. Do they have the most talent in the West? I particularly think they likely do, man to man, with the Lakers. But like I said, you could absolutely be right. Morris was the number one option in New York. Now he's maybe the fifth option, fourth maybe. Harold takes maybe fourth. Lou Williams is definitely third.
Well, no, I meant even in the starting lineup,
Yeah.
I guess, right? Because it's
It's gelling, and again, in these kind of circumstances, you just don't know how guys are. Like some people rely on the crowd. There's not going to be no crowd. I don't know if they're going to pipe in people. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
I don't remember what team it was, but someone was talking. It might have been like a first take kind of thing or whatever it was. Someone was talking positively about, we're the only team that's had. I think must have been Clippers. That's had like 7 guys average like 15 points. The only reason that happened is because Paul George missed like the first 2.5, 3 months of the season.
Yeah.
Kawhi plays every other game.
Yeah.
So you're taking away 45, 50 points right there.
Sure.
So those guys are going to get their 20, 25 points. That's their average. They're gone. Lou Williams is getting 20. Harold getting 20.
Yeah.
18.
Score. Yeah.
Morris came in towards the end of the deadline. He was filling it up whenever they needed him to. Now, like I said, the Raptors' biggest strength is that when guys went down, the next man up comes in.
Sure.
Norm, OG, Fred,
Your boy Slim Duck.
Slim Duck, Terrence Davis, like all these guys coming in and just filling it up. Where, like I said, I just don't think that it's the same. If you could put chemistry on like a meter, I think that the Raptors are on one side and the Clippers are on the total other side. Agree?
Yeah, well, and I think having the majority of the team last year, and again the Raptors, they brought in small additions. They brought in Rondé. I thought we were expecting more out of the
Stanley.
After the Stanley Johnson. He's been basically a no-show. Hasn't been able to get into the rotation whatsoever, really. I think that helps you because you take, and they played a lot of games without Kawhi, right? Kawhi missed almost 20 games last year.
Yeah.
So it's not like they don't know how to play with Kawhi, and you get a couple, Rondé's help definitely, but the guys are used to it. The
Well-oiled machine.
Clippers aren't used to it. The Clippers were used to playing their type of basketball, and now you have to defer to Kawhi. So that always takes some, and Paul George. So that always takes some getting used to. Could it be one of those situations where the first year Clippers aren't going to be what everyone thought they were? 100%. I don't bet against Kawhi in the playoffs. I mean, he's just
Okay, let's-
he's got a proven track
Let's just say,
record.
let's cut to that now. You're betting $100 right now, whatever it is. Who are you betting your money on
Overall,
to win the title? You just said you can't bet against Kawhi.
again, I'm gonna stick with my prediction, and I'm gonna say that the Clippers are going to win it. Even though, like as we've been stating, that there could be repercussions to that. I still
What are they? Just the injuries?
well that,
Possibility?
and you just know that
The depth
like
and
you just
the pecking
mentioned,
order.
like the pecking order and how that they might lay an egg,
Okay.
and that could be a possibility. It's one of those situations where the expectations are high. I just think that overall, if everybody's healthy and everyone plays to the capabilities, the Clippers win.
Wow.
So, and that's just how if Kawhi is Kawhi and Paul George is healthy. Now again, if Paul George goes down with an injury and he's done, will I 100% change my mind?
Really?
Yeah. Because I think that without Paul George there, you have and let's say everybody else is healthy, it takes away a lot from the team as not only defensively. Then you got
I
to
think
give
it hurts them more defensively than even offensively.
because you still got to deal with let's say that they play the Lakers. Sure, you got. And let's
A
say
few guys
let's
that
say
throw
Kawhi.
LeBron, right?
Let's say Kawhi cancels out LeBron and vice versa.
Yeah.
I still take Anthony Davis over any of the other Clippers by far. And I think they'd have. I mean, Zubac starts for them.
Yeah.
I think he'd have a heck of a problem with dealing with Davis. Harold's a good tough guy, but he's a smaller guy. I think Davis might be the X factor of the whole playoffs. Like he's that kind of talent where if he stays healthy, he's a game dominator. He's a game changer. So, like it's tough because, like I said, it's not one of those years where everyone's like, oh, the Warriors are going to win if everyone's healthy.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't have that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more parity, which is great
That's
because
why-
it's
yeah,
the
it's
NBA
tough,
kind
yeah.
of sucked the last few years when you
Yeah.
kind of knew that the Warriors were going to win it, minus what happened to Durant last year and so forth. Thankfully for the Raptors, I guess.
Okay. Any last thoughts on the season?
Well, I think the awards thing is going to be interesting.
I was gonna ask you about
I think
awards,
that I think most people are probably going to think that Giannis takes the MVP. I mean, I'm on 35-year-old LeBron's bandwagon.
Sure, you know what? I'm going to cut 1 second. Okay, I've never seen. I need to get myself on camera. I've never seen a man lobbying so hard for a trophy than I'm seeing from LeBron James right now. It's borderline embarrassing. If I had Lamar Grant by my side, I'm going to send him this. If I saw anybody else, I would it's cringeworthy the amount of times he'd had to pump his own tires. Have you ever seen in professional sports anybody try and sell themselves to win a championship for their legacy?
Well, the championship, yes. I think
Sorry, not championship. Sell themselves for the MVP
But what
trophy.
what has he really been doing to pump his tires though?
Have you ever seen anybody take time out of an interview to say that I think I've been the best player in the league, I think that I'm the MVP of the season, what I've done at this age, washed up king, all this stuff that he said all year. And now, like I said, people, you take a break from it because there was the COVID. You come back and he's trying to refresh everybody's memory about how great he's been. We know that. He's been great his whole career.
Well, I think, I think that comes with the territory with a lot of guys, though. We watched the Last Dance documentary with Mike, and when Mike was getting when comparisons with Clyde Drexler, he took that serious because Mike always thought he was the best player, right?
But comparing
He
yourself to
expected
Clyde
that.
Drexler and asking for an MVP trophy in a press conference are two different things.
Well, I guess I'm in the lobbying. I don't know. At the end of the day, obviously he wants it,
And that's fine.
Let's be real.
You can want the
personal
trophy, that's fine.
accolades mean a lot to guys. They might not come out and say it, depending on your personality. Would Kawhi say something like that? No, because that's not in Kawhi's personality.
But would anybody say something like that? Is the point.
That they believe that they're the best in the league?
Not that they believe they're the best. I don't want you dancing around this question. I'm talking about saying I need to win this MVP.
I need.
I'm the most valuable player in this league.
Self-confidence. Like I said,
Just say yes, man.
I'm
We
one
know
of
that
those,
it's a
well,
yes.
I'm always one of those guys that I prefer the guys that have the personality and the self-confidence. If I think I'm the best at something, I'm probably gonna let people know about it. And that's just me. Like other guys, I've seen Harden do it. I've seen the other guy. Giannis probably doesn't do it too much because I think that's just his personality.
It's one thing
really
if you
don't
get
have a
robbed.
problem
If you
with
get
that.
robbed and you know what I mean. Let's say for what
I
you
just saw
broke records.
I just saw an EPL guy get robbed. I thought Kevin De Bruyne was the best player in the EPL by far, and they gave it to Jordan Henderson, and I'm like, I guess the Liverpool won the league, and he was a good player, but I don't think Jordan Henderson was the best player. I thought Kevin De Bruyne had a great year. Manchester City didn't win the championship, but if you ask me who's a better player between Kevin De Bruyne and Jordan Henderson, I'll give you De Bruyne every 10 out of 10. But it is what it is.
But getting back to your original question.
Like, okay, like, should Giannis win the award by what I've seen what the Milwaukee did this year? More than likely, sure.
He's having a better year than he did last year.
Sure. And do I think that LeBron's not likely not going to win it? Probably not. Like, do I think that he's doing
nothing's
great?
wrong with that.
At
Nobody's
35?
saying he's doing amazing.
At 35,
That's the
he's
thing.
doing amazing.
He's doing great. And that's, I don't want to take this away from it. Like, LeBron's having a great season. The only thing that bothers me, like I said, is him, like, trying to get in reporters' good ears of saying, oh, hey, like, don't forget to vote for me. It's pretty much what he's doing.
Well,
and, like, that, if you a lot of people don't need any more reasons to not like LeBron.
Well,
And
but that's the thing. But they're going to use that as another reason not to like. Oh, LeBron can't be the best because he's not the MVP again. They're going to use that, obviously. So he obviously wants to get in front of that, which I don't blame the guy for. It's going to get used. Like, oh yeah, Giannis is going to get the MVP. You can't be the GOAT if you're losing MVPs every year. This is the reality. If you lose MVP, like I remember when who was it? Charles Barkley beat Jordan for that MVP. Mm-hmm. A lot of people thought that was blasphemous. That Jordan was always the best player in the league, and then Charles beat him that year for the MVP, and that pissed Jordan off. I mean, you saw it in the documentary. That pisses people off.
And it's fine to be pissed off by not winning it. I think it's fine. He didn't win it last year either.
Well, the only last year there was no chance because he missed half the year with that injury, pretty much.
Yeah, and the year before he didn't win it.
Well, there you go, right? Like I said, I think the playoffs. I think judging them off of what's going on.
I think a Finals MVP is more important than an MVP.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yes, I would agree with that too. And I mean, even though there's been guys that haven't been the best players. I mean, look at Iguodala won one. He probably deserved it that year. But again, was he the best? Well, actually, no, hold on. Well, Iguodala won it that year, but LeBron actually had the best series. But they gave it to,
no, and I would
even
agree
Warrior.
I would agree that that's the same thing as the Henderson thing, right? The guy who won the championship, right?
Which is again.
But that's, you lose, and you can't really expect a championship in a finals. He was the best player in that series. I'll give that to him. But anyway, getting back to the MVP and the finals MVP, if LeBron ends his career, I don't even remember, what does he have, 3 or 4 MVPs?
Yeah,
something like that.
Every time they've won it, every time he's won a championship, they've won MVP, I believe.
Okay, so
well, finals MVP.
If LeBron finishes his career with 4 or let's say 5 finals MVP, I think that's a lot more important to him and his legacy than winning the league MVP.
Sure.
And he's not going to say, oh, hey, I'm the best player in the finals, because we're all going to see that. I just think that, from like I said, what I've seen with LeBron this year, I just didn't like how he's been like, okay, I'm going to lead the league in assists, pass the guy to whatever. Chris Paul has had his time of doing that, and he's more of a guy where the ball's in his hands. People like Lamar have argued that LeBron holds the ball for too long. They're a totally different team. We won't really get into that because, like I said, I don't want to take away from his greatness.
But
he's a great player.
Lamar also argues that LeBron makes guys worse. Which again we can. I mean, I think even guys like I take like Skip Bayless absolutely hates LeBron. Like even Skip has basically said that LeBron's the best passer for the ball that he's ever seen. He said that multiple times. He said that LeBron with the ball in his hands, he's the best passer that he's ever seen, and that's a guy that absolutely detests LeBron. Yeah. Detests. Yeah. So like I said,
he's definitely one of the best. I think him and Magic are probably one.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think LeBron makes guys worse. Like there are some guys' stats going to go down, just like you mentioned with the Clippers situation, when you're playing with LeBron and he gets his, of course.
Yeah.
Like
that's fine.
Kevin Love and all those guys, obviously. But like I said, it'll probably go to Giannis, and Giannis probably deserves it. I mean, Milwaukee I think had the best regular season record. I have no problem with Giannis getting it. I think LeBron will probably be the runner-up. I don't see who the number 3 would be.
Because even going into this year, I had picked Anthony Davis as a dark horse.
Doncic might probably go.
He might pull it off next year. I thought Davis might be more important than because of what he does on both sides of the court. Let's go to Defensive Player of the Year. Who's your pick?
As a Defensive Player of the Year?
Rudy, Giannis, Anthony Davis. Kawhi didn't play enough.
I'm not giving it to Rudy because Rudy screwed everything up, and he acted like a moron. So I can't, in my good conscience, say that it's going to go.
We didn't even mention Utah in the West. I guess that.
Well, I mean, they're another situation where you just don't know how those.
A lot of guys.
Well, I think, there was all those reports that Mitchell was really mad at Gobert,
and I think that he still is,
and he probably still is. And who knows? Gobert, I don't think can still taste food, so who knows how the heck he's going to play. I'd probably give it to Davis if I'm being 100%. I think you can't go wrong with any of the 3. I think Giannis is a great defensive player as well. His reach, his length. But I think Davis, if I had to give him the award, I'd probably give it to Davis. But like I said, you can't go wrong. It's like choosing your favorite form of ice cream. I mean, you can't really go wrong.
Dairy Queen, it's a win-win.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
We did the most improved last time. Do you remember?
Yeah, we did that last time. But like I said, it's again with the way it is. I don't even take any of these awards. I personally think this year they should wait until the finals are over. That's why I'd give the MVP because of the way that how it's structured. Now these 9 games aren't going to count for much. I would legitimately play the 9 games, play the playoffs,
1 month.
then give the MVP.
They missed
More than a month. Man. It was in March.
March 11th. It went down,
Yeah,
right? And the
April,
regular
May.
season ends. My dad's birthday's mid-March, and then my dad's birthday's usually the last game, 13th. So I think they missed
So, but
4.5 weeks, 4 weeks.
yeah. So, but in that span, I would think
Most
that
guys are resting.
I would
for the
think that
most part.
I would say that if I had to go MVP at that point, I think like Giannis had about a 55% advantage over LeBron. It wasn't huge.
What's changed though?
Well, that's the thing. In those 4 weeks, if let's say the Bucks go downhill, and the Lakers all of a sudden like get the best record in the West or in the season, that might change
You
a lot
think
of
that if
votes.
the Lakers finish with because they were how many games behind Milwaukee anyways? 2 or 3 for best record in the league. It's not like it was a landslide.
4 weeks is a lot of games, though, right?
You think that
It could have happened where the Bucks go downhill a little bit, and the Lakers boss up. You never know, right?
Yeah, I don't really think that would.
Well, I mean, those
Unless-
awards
yeah,
are always
unless-
interesting. Like they're not going to give the ball in the door in soccer this year.
Really?
They're not, and that to me probably should go to Lewandowski if I had a vote. And I'm a Ronaldo guy, but Ronaldo hasn't done. He's got 30 goals in 30 games, whatever. But to me, him and Messi would be second and third,
Yeah.
and Lewandowski probably deserves it. But they're not going to do it, so it is what it is because of the way the season's panned out.
Yeah.
But anyways, like I said, if Giannis wins it, back to back, deserve it. And again, what's going to be interesting with him is if the Bucks don't do well.
In the past.
If they don't
What's
do well,
not doing well?
you got. I think
Get
for,
to the
for
finals?
the Bucks. No. I think they need for the Bucks to. I think maintain him because of all the interest that they're going to have next summer. If they don't make the finals this year, even if they make the finals and if they get ruined in the finals, next year's going to be real interesting because I don't think you see a guy like that in his prime be a free agent like that. I mean, yeah, you had LeBron, but I think LeBron, it was a very small market for him. And again, I don't know. And again, I think he was a little bit older too. Because I think Giannis is going to be a marquee. And again, I don't want to, like, if he ends up messing up and the Raptors beat him again, he's got a real good relationship
You
with
think he pulls
Masai.
a Durant and jumps to the team that beat him?
He's got a real good relationship with Masai. He obviously, if the Raptors beat him again,
Raptors fans, we the North. Are you listening to this? Igor Henriquez with the
I
prophecy.
mean, if you look at like the odds, the Raptors are going to have the cap space. They're going to be able to because again, Kyle.
I don't know if they're gonna have the cap space.
Because if you look at it, they're
Fred's
gonna,
a free agent. They got
Fred's a free agent.
Anybody?
But I mean, you look at. I think Kyle was going to be a free agent. Well, Serge is going to be gone. Like
I think a lot of these guys are going to
cap
come
space.
back at lower contracts. They will have some space, but like Pascal's going into a max.
Pascal's going to the max. Kyle's got next year now. He's got,
Kyle's
and he's
making
done.
30.
And he's done
Yeah.
because I personally think that Kyle's not going to be back after because again, you can't
No,
really be given.
but do you not think that Fred's going to come back at like 20 per?
Possibly, but that still means that they still got some money though for
But
franchise.
you're going to
level
run
money.
into like a Miami Heat situation where it's like you have guys on minimums and rookies filling out the roster.
I
You
think
think
that-
that?
I think- I think
But
that
you
for
think that
Giannis.
I would
think
take
that
it?
for
But you
Giannis.
think that would be like the case?
I think the way they set up the contracts, I think it's no coincidence that the way that they've done the contracts, they're going to be making a big push for the big man. Which again, I'm all for. I think he might have ties to the Bucks situation, but I think
The
Raptors
size work
winning
with the Giants of Africa also.
the Messiah, but the Bucks situation again, are they going to throw all the money at him? 100%.
Of course, yeah.
Are the bigger markets gonna start throwing money at him too?
So
I mean,
in
I've
Toronto,
even heard the
Toronto's not-
Warriors. I've even heard the Warriors might make a big push for him, and and then Draymond. Obviously, they have to deal Draymond, but I mean, they'd have they do a
Draymond, Steph, Wiggins, and Clay.
But Wiggins is another. Well, again, I would suggest they probably throw those guys, Draymond and Wiggins, throw them away if they had an opportunity. But again, I don't know who's going to take those
you need
contracts.
takers, right?
Well, I mean, I think I predicted too that they wouldn't keep D'Angelo Russell for more
Yeah,
than
a lot of
bit,
people
right?
thought that, yeah.
I
Yeah,
told you
yeah.
that was not going to work out well.
Yeah.
But like I said, we'll see what happens with all that. But it's going to be an interesting time. I mean, this summer, because everything's all over the. There's not much. The free agent class next year, that's going to be interesting to watch.
All right, so we're going to end the show with just. I know you gave your prediction. I want to know who you think they're going to play in the finals. You took the Clippers. You're still sticking with the Clippers. So Clippers and who they going against in the finals?
My heart
Is
again.
it these
My
Raptors?
heart again. again, it's one of those situations where I think I did this last time, where I said, I go with my head and not with my heart, and it ended up costing me, I believe, because I think I said Raptors in 7, and then the Bucks in the Bucks in 6. No, I actually said the Bucks in 7, the Raptors in 6, and it ended up being Raptors in 6. But I'm gonna, I'm gonna say the Raptors make the finals again. It's probably not going to happen, but they prove me wrong. I have a little more faith. But again, we're gonna probably be doing this again when the playoffs start. And I tell you right now, if they start throwing eggs, and again, they've got a reprieve. They won the championship. I'm happy. I could die a happy man basketball-wise. Still waiting for the Leafs to not. I'm gonna take the Raptors to make the finals. And again, they won't win against the Clippers, but I'll take them to make the finals because I think Nick Nurse might have Giannis figured out a little bit, and I have some faith that some of those guys will come up big in the playoffs. So I will. And again, there's no home court, so they don't even have to go to Milwaukee or any of that. Man-to-man series. I'm taking even though the Bucks really did a number on the Raptors this year, so I'm taking the Raptors. Raptors.
And then top 4 teams in the East. Like, who do you think gets the semis? Raptors and Bucks. Then who?
It'll be. I think it'll end up being. I don't think the Sixers will make it. I think it'll be. I think Miami will end up making the semis. So I'm taking Raptors. I guess Bucks, Raptors, Miami, and the Celtics. Can't trust the Sixers.
Okay.
Embiid in his gas props. God knows what that guy will do.
I don't know. I think that the Sixers have a decent shot. Someone told me, I think it was one of my buddies yesterday, was somebody at the gym, that he had read an article that like 18% of finals bets have been placed on Philly since like the restart has happened, which I found pretty crazy and interesting. I picked, I think, Philly over the Clippers in the preseason when we did our preseason show.
Yes. I believe so.
But
yes.
and I feel a lot better about the Clippers now that they're healthy and like Simmons is going to the power forward.
The Sixers.
Yeah. That being said.
But like I said, I mean that does take away Horford, the influence of Horford in there, and again, like
you can still mix
experimenting stuff like that in such a short time span. Does that usually work out for teams?
But Horford at this point, he's more of like a stretch guy, anyways, right? So like even if you're playing him, they need that space because they don't have many shooters.
Like I said, it'll really depend on health. And I think they were screwed with Simmons' injury. I think they would have been in
the back injury. That's right. He would have
been in a real bad situation come the playoffs. But
maybe a good
the
situation.
spacing with Embiid and Simmons, again, I have to see it. I mean, if it could end up working out, I think it's kind of ridiculous in terms of a coaching thing. I'm spacing on the coach's name right now, but the Sixers coach. That he's trying this now after years on end. But again, I guess he also feels that if they don't do well, he's likely going to get fired anyway. So he might as well throw everything he can, I guess. But experimenting like that, like in this situation, it might burn. But I mean, they have the talent. I don't think they have the depth. I think you get Horford off the bench. I like Brown. I like Brown. They got some guys, but I can't see it. Especially if they depending on who they face matchup wise. I don't think they beat the Bucks.
I think that they beat them on Christmas, and I think that I'm kind of. I don't know.
That was in Philly, though. That was in Philly.
Yeah.
And they're great in Philly, but on the road,
I think they were maybe even below 500. All right, getting you back to my prediction, it's tough because I still really like. I like Philly. I don't think that they're going to win it because I think that there's just too many things that have to kind of go right from them playing a different style now. I'll go with the Raptors to go to the finals. To go to the final, okay? In the West, like I said, I do think that there's a real. When's the last time that we would have seen a team like a 6, 7, or 8 seed in basketball even get to a finals? I can't think of anything off the top of my head. There's been upsets, and I know we've seen it in other sports, football, basketball, baseball. Sorry, not basketball. I'm going to go with the Raptors winning the championship.
Oh, wow.
Winning the championship over the Lakers.
Oh, wow.
That's going to be my finals.
That'll be Lamar Grant's wet dream on that one.
Would it? You think?
Well, yeah. I mean, if the Raptors were to beat LeBron in the finals,
he'd have that on you forever too, right?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's not like, again, I think Lamar, we have these discussions with him, and he's more on the train that we both jumped off the Raptors train, because I think we both said that the Raptors, based on how they were doing in the playoffs, they should have rebuilt. And technically, they did rebuild. They got
They
rid
retooled.
of.
They retooled.
Well, I mean, they got rid of a good
traded
number
DeMar.
of guys on the roster.
Yeah.
If you look at the when they got rid of JV, when they got rid of CJ Miles, when they got rid of DeMar, when they got rid of Jakob Poeltl, like they ended up like making shift about half the roster. So yeah, they got rid of DeMar, and they retooled a tad. I guess it wasn't a full rebuild, but yeah, they got Kawhi Leonard, which was the guy that really put them over the hump in the playoffs, which we knew that Kyle and DeMar weren't going to do. I mean, we're just being realistic here. They weren't going to do it.
All right, so once again, Raptors over Lakers, my finals prediction. And I want to say, I think it's because of the depth. I think they have so many guys. They have the size to go against the Lakers, which not a lot of teams do. With
Yes.
Ibaka, Slim Duck for whatever minutes he's going to play. Marc Gasol obviously is. Marc Gasol might be like their X factor in the playoffs, right? He was last year.
If he's healthy and he can move around and his offense gets going, that gives them an extra.
We know he's
added
going to move
dimension.
around because he's dropped. It looks like he's dropped like 20 pounds.
Like I said,
He grew some hair out. He's looking like young and.
the way he's a good guy. Like I was on him a bit this year because it's just his offensive performances weren't
He's been
great.
very passive.
He's been very passive. He'd throw down some zeros a couple of games or 2-point games. But again, if he can get back to even like 12 to 15 points a game, that's a huge bonus. And his defensive stats.
Yeah, if he gets to 10 or 12,
amazing.
I think that would be really good.
And then they're really in a good spot.
Yeah.
Because then they're getting and Surge and so forth. Like they got the points with Surge last year that I would cringe every time he threw up a 3-point.
Yeah, it was getting ugly. I remember that.
It was getting rough. But I think they're likable guys.
I think that this might be the last year also for the Raptors of having this much depth and guys that are going to play because just due to the age of guys like Gasol, maybe Ibaka, we're not sure if he'll come back. Probably will on a lesser contract. And just the cap situation going forward because there's a lot of questions. And this is even before next summer. But I think that this summer might be the last time where, it's been a real joy to watch it. To be honest, they remind me a little bit of old Spurs basketball when we were growing up. Moving the ball, hitting the open hand, playing defense.
I'll take the Giannis Siakam 1-2 any day of the week.
Yeah.
I mean, knock on wood.
And Fred. I think that Fred is...
That could be a heck of a
I honestly
future.
think that Fred is one of the more underrated guys in the league and even on the Raptors team. Just his shooting and the
Like I
defense.
said,
We saw last year in the finals.
A lot of those guys are approaching the shelf life. And I mean, even Kyle really negotiating for that extra year where he's like, I don't want to play on the 1 year. And whatever. I guess he earned it. I wasn't thrilled.
It's not our money. It's not our money, and he's been playing well.
I wasn't thrilled with the extra year, but I can see why they did it. And again, you also put it this way. And again, Masai's no dummy. His contract, and again, don't know how the team's going to be.
Piece, right?
During that year when guys are trying to get because there's going to be great free agents, his expiring contract's going to look nice. The Raptors can get some significant pieces if they want for Kyle. Yeah. Because his expiring contract for teams that want to clear the decks and want to go after the big guns in the free agency.
Maybe get a pick.
There's a reason they Masai's no dummy. Because again, right now, let's say the Raptors were terrible this year. With the free agent class that was going on, Kyle and Ibaka's contracts weren't that lucrative because I think Draymond was going to end up being the best free agent at some point. It's terrible. It was a terrible free agent class. And then next year, that ends up being much, much better. So, so Masai's no dummy. So, we'll see how it plays out. Those guys, I think Kyle's going to be nearly 35.
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to, you're not going to give that guy $30 million for a 35-year-old. Yeah. Unless you're LeBron, I guess. But.
All right, that's going to wrap it up then for this episode. We're going to get back together once, maybe midway through the retooling of the season, and then definitely a playoffs matchup whenever that's kind of scheduled. And we'll see. Maybe we can bring along an old friend for another episode.
Special correspondent.
We'll see if we can get that back. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time on The Block.